the interests of our country.
One of McCarthy's former investigators, David Schein, had been drafted into the Army. When McCarthy demanded special treatment for Schein, he was shocked when it wasn't given. The Army then accused him and his chief counsel, Roy Cohn, of using improper pressure on Schein's behalf. In combination with his waning poll ratings and his new anger toward the Army, McCarthy would now put his desperate measure in place to ensure a rise yet again in popularity. When on March 11, 1954, the Army issued a detailed chronology showing Cohn's improper intrusions into Schein's military career, McCarthy responded by claiming the Army was holding Schein hostage to deter his committee from exposing communists within the military ranks. To resolve the dispute, the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, of which McCarthy was chairman, voted to investigate and to allow live television coverage of the inquiry. McCarthy gave up the chairmanship to Carl Munt, Republican senator of South Dakota, to become, with Cohn, a contestant and witness in a widely anticipated live television drama. On April 22, 1954, the Army-McCarthy hearings began. The media was heavily involved throughout the 36 days of hearings, in which 188 hours of broadcast time were given over to telecasts originating from the Senate caucus room. The network feed came courtesy of the facilities of ABC's Washington, D.C. affiliate WMAL-TV. Initially, all four networks were expected to carry the complete hearings live, but NBC and CBS balked at the loss of revenues from commercial programming. With an eye to its profitable daytime soap opera lineup, CBS opted out before the hearings began, leaving NBC, ABC, and Dumont formally committed to coverage.
Until this moment, Senator, I think I never really gauged your cruelty or your recklessness.
On television, it seemed as if the hearings pitted a boorish McCarthy and a bleary-eyed Cohn against a kind-hearted Joseph N. Welch. Welch was a lawyer of the Boston law firm of Hale and Dorr, whom the Army had hired as its special counsel. Welch's calm, aristocratic manner served as an appealing contrast to Cohn's insincere deceit and McCarthy's rude outbursts. The afternoon of June 9, 1954, brought the emotional climax of the hearings, an exchange replayed in many Cold War documentaries. Ignoring an agreement between Welch and Cohn that had been made before the arguments, McCarthy insinuated that one Fred Fisher, a young lawyer at Hale and Dorr, harbored communist sympathies. Welch responded with a righteous outburst.
It has been labeled long before he became a member, as early as 1944.
Senator, may we not drop this? We know he belongs to the Lawyers Guild. Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
I know this hurts you, Mr. Welch.
Mr. McCarthy, I will not discuss this further with you. You have sat within 6 feet of me and could have asked me about Fred Fisher. You have seen fit to bring it out, and if there is a God in heaven, it will do neither you nor your cause any good. I will not discuss it further. I will not ask Mr. Cohn any more witnesses. You, Mr. Chairman, may, if you will, call the next witness.
McCarthy was shocked over how his reputation had just gone down the drain. The end of the Army-McCarthy hearings marked the end of McCarthy's reign as the hard-nosed communist investigator. Though McCarthy would completely lose his title about a year later and fall dead due to increased alcohol consumption, the effect of his ruling and his fall would drastically change our nation.
Since my love he's sabotaging, and the law he has been dodging. Give him what he deserves, jailhouse lodging. Get that communist Joe. Get that communist Joe. Get that communist Joe.
McCarthy's accusations destroyed homes and families. Many accused of being communists were not able to return to their jobs, and those who were, it was too late for them. Their careers had been tarnished. Not only the adults that were accused were affected by the hardships that followed, but the children too. They often were avoided because other children's parents told their kids to stay away from them just because their parents were considered communists. They grew up witnessing what the parents had to deal with, and the suppression of individual expression and ideas. Many people were scared to express their own ideas, and many leftists were forced underground. No wonder a new generation of radical idealists came up through the peace and civil rights movements.
In recognizing a communist, physical appearance counts for nothing. If he openly declares himself to be a communist, we take his word for it. If a person consistently reads and advocates the views expressed in a communist publication, he may be a communist. If a person supports organizations which reflect communist teachings, or organizations labeled communist by the Department of Justice, she may be a communist. If a person defends the activities of communist nations while consistently attacking the domestic and foreign policy of the United States, she may be a communist. If a person does all these things over a period of time, he must be a communist.
The suppression of ideas during the McCarthyism era made radicals have the idea that the man was trying to bring them down. On top of suppressing people's ideas, McCarthy's scare and investigations to try to find communists in America fueled the anti-communist hysteria, which led to the billions of dollars being spent in creating a nuclear arsenal, with risks that even boggled the minds of those who specialized in thinking the unthinkable. In 1950, the United States had very few nuclear warheads, but by 1955 we had over 5,000 warheads. And 5 years later, in 1960, the U.S. would have 32,040 warheads armed and ready for use. McCarthyism had sparked a national fear and hatred of communism and communist nations. McCarthyism caused us to go into 2 wars that cost thousands upon thousands of human lives, not to mention the hundreds of thousands of mental lives it cost. The wars were so traumatic that cases of PTSD skyrocketed. In total, over 1.5 million have or have had PTSD as a result of the Vietnam War alone. And all just because one man made incredulous accusations that were never even proven to be true. The problems that resulted from McCarthyism did not only affect the U.S., many countries began to reject communism, following the path of the U.S., resulting in the creation of the Red Army faction in West Germany after West Germany banned communism in 1956, which just happened to be during the McCarthyism craze. The Red Army faction used guerrilla warfare tactics. They were considered terrorists, bombing buildings and killing officials in Germany. The attitude toward communists in Europe began to turn more and more sour, as riots broke out, killing many, both communists and anti-communists. All of the suppression of communism and all of the wars in the Cold War era resulted from one man and his ridiculous idea of McCarthyism, making accusations of disloyalty, subversion, and treason without any evidence whatsoever. He suppressed the rights and ideas of millions of Americans, almost caused a nuclear war and the destruction of billions, and possibly even the world, forged radical idealists, and spread an irrational fear of communism throughout the world. Joseph McCarthy left an imprint on societies and governments that will be seen for years to come.
Joe, come here a minute. I got a red hot tip for you, Joe. See that guy with the red suspenders driving that car with the bright red fenders. I know he's one of those heavy spenders. Get that communist Joe. He's filling my gal with propaganda, and I'm scared she will meander. Don't want to take a chance that he'll land her. Get that communist Joe. He's the most revolting character, and the fellas hate him so. But with the girls, this character is a comrade Romeo. Since my love he's sabotaging, and the law he has been dodging. Give him what he deserves, jailhouse lodging. Get that communist Joe. Get that small